research to help us analyze and see the mistakes of our government policies and see the mistakes of our youth and understand what we can do so we can correct all these anomalies and be amongst the top nations with the best youth that are productive. Good morning, sir. I'm with Engineer Awal, who, for me, has actually been a mentor from day one that I met with him. I've listened to him, and you can as well see that he's young, but very, very deep when it comes to knowledge and practice. I hope you enjoy this time with me because I'll be welcoming you to an educative field where an unbiased dissecting of this topic will help all of us to grow as a person. Engineer Awal Hayatu Wakili, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
The youth, sir.
Yes.
In one word, to start with, how have we fared representing this nation, Nigeria?
All is not well.
Wow, it's sad. Now, sir, how do you describe the youth leadership role in Nigeria, and how have they really affected the social development of this country?
First and foremost, you must be able to establish who is a youth. From what bracket of age is one ascribed or described as the youth? I think the UN General Assembly in 1965, Resolution 2037, tried to create a day which shall be, recognized and adopted as International Youth Day. What does that really entails? It entails that there's a need for us to have respect accorded to the youth, rights accorded to them, and respect must be accorded to them. So if that is lacking, I think there's a vacuum. So there's a need for us to be able to walk around the clock to change the narrative.
Successive governments will always tell you they've churned out policies that are for youth development. You hear social this, you hear youth whatever empowerment this. Have they really worked, or is it the paperwork that's actually faulty? Is it the lack of the usual data collection that actually has been the problem, or are we so lazy as a nation to research properly so as to know what actually can actually uplift our youth from nobody's to somebody's? Because we've actually had a collection of youth that whenever we talk about them, it's either we ascribe the word tout, you ascribe thuggery, you ascribe lazy. I don't know. What is it that we can't do right to help the youth?
Well, basically, when you isolate a problem, that is when you begin to find a solution to the problem. First and foremost, you must acknowledge the fact that the youth of this country have been left behind, and they have not been in scheme of things for a very long time. The reasons are not far-fetched. The so-called leaders that have been at the helms of affairs over the years refuse to retire. And there's a need for them to go because the younger generation must also grow. So these are one of the fundamental issues that we must trash out. Go to the National Assembly, you are aware of the not too young to run bill. But at the end of the day, the entire politics has been monetized. A young man has the vision, has the policies, but he doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to go into the political arena. So a lot needs to be done in order to be able to fine-tune the situation around the political system of this country, so that youth leadership, as you want this country to take their rightful position, will definitely take a long way.
Our youth are usually the millennials, so to speak.
Yes.
Have always been described as immoral
Yes.
based on the lack of respect and lack of nationalism. What can be done to actually change the narrative for a youth to actually want to follow the process of governance? What is the law presently, from your expertise and exposure, that you think is what can actually help change the direction of our youth towards nationalism, towards nation building, towards the politics that should change their lives and generations to come after them?
To my mind, there were 7 points raised by Mahatma Gandhi, and if we should be able to look at those 7 items, we will definitely be able to understand that there is no wealth without work. There is no politics without principle. There is no commerce without morality. There is no worship without sacrifice. There is no science without humanity. So, definitely, unless we are able to look inwards to be able to address this issue we face today as youths, the country has lost direction because the younger ones are no longer in the position of power. And the policies also are not helping matters. You can give an instance. Some of the younger ones that are given the opportunities today, really, you talked about the morals are lacking. We need norms. We need norms, values, and ethics. But are we ethical? Are we ready to be ethical? Are we ready to be patriotic citizens of the country? Not me, but the country should grow. Because even at the level of the United Nations, after the declaration of 1965, there were 3 items that were identified, what they call the PDP, not the political party of our country: participation, development, and peace. That is what it tries to promote. And what really encourages better governance is participation. You don't allow political parties the space. As we speak today, there are only 2 political parties in this country, as far as I'm concerned. The other ones are only mushroom or briefcase political parties. So what happens is that the space is quite small. They need to expand the spaces, and also there should be more participation of our younger generation, or they used to be able to do this politics much better.
So, are you saying there's a deliberate script to alienate the youth from participating in politics? Or what are because the hurdles set in front of them are too magnanimous, or the lack of education? Because I realize when you engage a typical Nigerian youth these days, the languages you hear are actually not administrative enough. They are not usually polite, so to speak. Those part of the indicators why they think probably the youth are not ready.
The youths of the other years, were ready. Why were they ready? It was the system itself. So there's a change in the system. Unless there's an overall overhaul of the system, obviously we will just be running without going anywhere, motion without movement. So long you cannot be able to go to the National Assembly, look at the national youth policy in the first place. It's not about the crafting the policy. It's about the implementation of that particular policy. At the same time, what is the impact of the policy? That is the overall objective of every policy.
Wow, sir, you mentioned about policy and implementation.
Yes,
We've always known Nigeria is bedeviled with implementation problems.
yes, yes,
Now, sir, when it comes to crafting a document,
yes.
how much of stakeholdership have the youths had to these documents that concern them from time immemorial? Because usually all governments will always churn out programs, but how much of participation of these youths are in those programs?
Well, the program may, media-wise, be well articulated. It can be very much physical, you could see, but underground, the main objective of such projects don't get achieved because of some few disgruntled elements within the society. This would be a beautiful idea, but at the tail end of the whole thing, because of their selfish ends, they will now shortchange the system. People that are eminently qualified for such, maybe, let me give an example, conditional cash transfer or trader money or whatever. It has been actually been taken the other way around. Those who are mandated with that responsibility eventually will now seek to assist their people, not the people in need. And that is why most of those policies fail, because you lack the monitoring and evaluation. which should have been the major mechanism to be able to see through these policies. You don't craft only policies, you craft them, you monitor them, you evaluate them.
So the education of our youth, by your assessment and research, what number are we between 0 to 10?
Well, we are not faring too well by virtue of our population, by virtue of the fact that in the trying times today we're in the 21st century, for crying out loud. So there's a need for us to be able to diversify, and we have what it takes to be able because one major challenge we have today is that there are about 10 point something million children out of school.
Your children.
It is not about the children being out of school. What were the reasons that generated that situation? We should be able to see the causation. What caused that problem? Is it a government policy? Is it a neighborhood policy? Is it a security challenge? These are all factors we must be able to put on the table.
Wow. Again, we know development, the millennial has come with its kind of its perk, which is one. Traditionalism is always in the back.
Yeah.
Compared to liberalization.
Yeah.
Is Nigeria that kind of a place where such kind of culture will succeed?
One of the even things that sustaining the country together is for some of our cultural identity.
Which means we cannot do without that.
Of course, no country or no nation in the world does not go back to its culture or heritage. As we speak today, the number one democracy you're talking about, the UK, still have what we call a monarch. So have they been able to do away with the monarchy? The monarchy is still very much in the system. So the culture is part and part of you.
Because
You cannot do
usually
away with the culture.
in articles you read, you hear because of the kind of culture we practice, it has really,
You're talking
really
about the negative cultures.
okay.
Yes, but there are some positive cultures that dignifies you, not disgrace you. So we should be looking at it from the both sides of the coin.
And again, sir, how have our youth really, really learned the cultures of our fathers and fathers' fathers? Because usually, when you see a youth today, what they call you see the trousers, the pants are down to the knees. Compared to before, you see a young man, walking past an elder, rather than be humble and respectful, you actually want to actually rub shoulders unnecessarily.
Is
And
that
those things not part of the learning curve that should have shaped our youth.
this is one of the eroding of our cultural beliefs and values. You just made mention of the fact that those days when you pass an elder, all of you must kneel down and pay or respect to him. These days, that is not the situation. Obviously, because of the interactions and the globalization of the whole world, make a lot of people to go what we call individualism. I can tell you reasons why. So somebody will tell you, I can do without you because I have what it takes. I don't need community assistance. And so one of the major issue is the globalization. It's one of the key issues that is doing away with a lot of our cultural beliefs. You can go to your communities today. Most are very few that could speak your dialect correctly. Much of our languages have been encroached by English or whichever language you can think of today because we don't believe and stick to those our cultural beliefs. Today, you go to China, a Chinese man does not care about English. He speaks his Mandarin and is comfortable about it. And also, he teaches his people in the same Mandarin. And they are also one of the workshop of the world today. It's not about language.
So, sir, is globalization a terrible thing to
It,
come to Africa,
no, not at
particularly
all. Not
Nigeria?
at all. There are two ways to it. There could be the negative aspect of the globalization. There could be also another positive aspect of the globalization. I can give you an instance of it. Now, we talk about globalization. I can be able to reach out somebody at the cost of the United States in less than a few seconds. It's a result of globalization. Before it was impossible. But the contents today that we have in our social media are doing so much damage to our beliefs, to our norms, unless we take strict actions to be able to correct these anomalies, we're in a serious mess because the social media has become another place where people weaponize to antagonize, to create confusion, to hypnotize people. So a lot needs to be done to address issues accordingly.
So, having said this much and deep, what are the steps you think the youth should take from today onward that should begin to shape um, progression towards leadership roles, towards owning up nationalism, towards national development? What are the steps you think, based on research and deep rooted knowledge, that should help, that could
The
help us?
fundamental thing is patriotism. If you are not patriotic enough, you don't care what happens to the country the next morning. If you believe in your country, believing first matters in your country, believing in yourself, and also learn not to lie to three. Number one, never lie to yourself. Number two, don't lie to your doctor that you have kidney issue when you have a heart failure. Number three, don't lie to your lawyer. You stole a goat, you told him you did not steal a goat. So you see, don't say what it is not. Try to stick to the principles. Stand by the ethos of our founding fathers. Most of our founding fathers were so patriotic that they died, they had few kobos in their accounts. They had no mansions. They had no limousines. Of the crop of leaders we have today, you could see that there is a complete paradigm shift in terms of our attitude. You can see how politicians become so much of acquiring tendencies instead of them to be able to empower their society, their communities, because they were elected to be able to serve the communities they come from. Unfortunately, when they're elected into the office, they hardly go back home until after the 4 years. So where is the representation? So the youths now should take the responsibility of making sure they are prepared to take over the responsibility of leadership. Because leadership is not given, it's taken.
So, is it that the law of corruption is actually better than honesty and sacrifice?
Well, you can categorize it in a different perspective. Corruption can have a different dimension. No, not saying the truth is also corruption. Giving somebody information that is not supposed to know is also corruption. Assisting somebody outside the queue is also corruption. So it all depends on what definition you are giving corruption. But obviously, corruption has been the canker worm that has made this country stagnated for donkey years. I can give you instances. Today, we had a Jakuta rolling steel mill, which was conceived by the previous administration of Shehu Shagai. And at that time, the plan was in the next few years, today we should be rolling cars. We should be rolling, sheets of metals for exports and also for industrialization. And I could give you instances that will strike your mind, my dear brother. At that time, they set up the Ajakuta Steel. That was when South Korea started going into steel production. But it will amaze you. South Korea does not have a deposit of iron ore. They don't have a deposit of iron ore. But when General Park designed the industrial policy, how do we industrialize South Korea? We begin to get the source of the raw materials from Canada. And as I speak to you today, South Korea is the sixth largest shipbuilding country in the world and second largest producer of crude steel in the world. They don't have a deposit of iron ore. So it's all about policy. How do you work on your policy? Determines the outcome of your objectives. So corruption has actually stagnated this country. The only way we can do about it is to be able to have more youths participating in politics. Let's create awareness where the generations that are coming behind should know that Malcolm Jr. said one thing to his son, and I told you I was so moved by such statements. That it's honorable to fail than to cheat. That $1 earned is more than $5 found. He wrote now this, to his son's teacher, telling him that teach my son the wonder of books, but also give him the quiet time to ponder the eternal mysteries of birds in the sky, the bees in the sun, and the flowers on the green hillside. Treat him gently, but do not coddle him. Only a taste of fire makes a fire. And these are people who are thinking in the future. They are beginning to give a vision to the younger generation coming up to imbibe beliefs that will further and better the country, not at the detriment, but for the betterment of the country.
So there have been hues and cries from different parts of our country. The Southwest, Yoruba Nation, the Southeast, you hear the ESN and the IPOB. You keep hearing different in Plateau, whatever.
Yeah.
This civic unrest can help foster integration, youth participation, and national development.
Um, the linchpin of every crisis lies with the youth. Most of those people who take arms are the youth. Most of the people who do the vandalism are the youth. So what we needed to do is to be able to change the situation on ground, because they are under a tripartite triangle of poverty, illiteracy, and unemployment. And if these issues are confronting one, where do you think he will be able to think clearly? He's just been bedeviled by abject poverty and suffocating hardship. Somebody cannot earn a 1 square meal a day. He cannot even put his head somewhere to lay. He doesn't even know what future or tomorrow holds for him. I mean, there's so much uncertainty in the country. There's so much injustice in the country. There's so much marginalization in the country in some areas which need to be addressed. And also, there's so lopsidedness of a lot of things in the country that's not going right. And so, if things need to go right, we have to go the right way. You cannot be on the right track and be on the wrong lane in a track and field event. So, you must be at the right track and also at the right lane if you want things to work.
So, how far to the book where knowledge is hidden are the Nigerian youths?
Well, it's not that Nigerian youths are not so concerned or are not interested in knowledge or seeking knowledge. It's just because of those societal problems. Because society, to a very large extent, influences your thinking, influences your decisions. And these are the things we need to look at it. With the societal problem still alarming, not reducing. Which, as I can speak to you today, the unemployment rate is 33.0%
Of our
of
population.
our population. That is the unemployment rate. And we have a population of over 200 million people. And as I speak with you, United Nations said there are about 1 billion youths by virtue of the percentage. And now that means that if plan has not been put in place, we are going to have what we call population explosion.
Explosion.
So demographics need to be taken into proper consideration in terms of planning. We are talking about 200 million people, my dear brother, yet we cannot produce 10,000 megawatts of electricity. What is wrong with us? Is it that the policy is not there, or the people that don't have what it takes to do it, or we don't have the technical know-how? It's just that the will has not been put in place.
Wow. Viewers, we cannot exhaust this. And I must tell you, I said you will learn from him because every time I listen to him, my mind opens up and like a sponge, I keep soaking and it's inexhaustive. The youth really have a lot of work to do. Like he rightly said, you can't get these things on a platter of gold. You must earn them, you must work for them, and you must be there because you can't wait in the house, be in the bedroom, and have them handed down to you. Thank you very much, engineer. And like I said, we will always be calling on you because we need to we need to change the paradigm.
Yeah.
We need to shift our culture, thought culture. The critical thinking had been eroded, and it's terrible because, to be honest, for every day you listen to the news, it's all about one corruption, another corruption that demoralizes a lot of our youths. But I believe Nigerian youth are one of the best. They are very innovative, and I feel if they have the right tools and the right direction, they will be able to progress this nation forward. Thank you again, wonderful sir. And I'll always say, please always come to us
You're
when we
always
seek for
welcome.
knowledge and
I'm
when we seek
always
for your
readily
welfare.
available whenever you request for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. Please always subscribe and click on our like buttons. We will always have Engineer Awal here to speak to us on a lot of different topics that affect our minds, that affect our progression as a nation. Good morning.